Israel just signaled it's going to take control of the entire Gaza Strip. Not a raid, not a security sweep, control. And they're doing this a day before I leave for Israel, which is fine. I guess I better download that Red Alert missile app, right? Look, this is going to be an occupation in all practical terms. The Israeli Defense Forces are already in charge of the ground, the air, the sea, and essentially the gates, while somebody not named Hamas will handle day-to-day services, perhaps sometimes later. I saw this movie in Iraq. It basically took paying the Iraqis not to kill us, also known as the Sons of Iraq, to kind of get it through to the Sunnis that, yeah, they have a future if they stop being knuckleheads. Fingers crossed, Israel will use my idea of creating a Tahrir militia, which will kind of be like the Sons of Gaza. So what does take over actually mean? Well, what takeover does not necessarily mean is annexation. This is more like an indefinite Israeli security control to keep Hamas from regenerating. Think of it like this. The IDF decides who to move, what flows, and where the guns live. And maybe foreign but trusted NGOs or some kind of non-Hamas civil authority is supposed to do trash pickup, water, schools under some sort of protection. That's the only way you get any kind of stability while Gaza rebuilds its basics like power, water, medical care, food distribution, and then afterwards housing, education, economic infrastructure come back online. Maybe the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is currently distributing aid in Gaza, kind of morphs into some sort of viceroy, and I don't like to use that word, but some sort of authority that slowly becomes responsible for everything a city needs except security. I mean, yeah, that arrangement would be kind of controversial, but the alternative is to let Hamas reinflate like a pool toy. You know, Gazans know what Hamas rule looks like. People have risked their lives to protest it. But, you know, living under a theocratic militia means your kid's hospital is also somebody else's ammo dump. And I would imagine by now there are some people in Gaza who don't want that anymore. Urban control happens in 3 phases as defined by American General David Petraeus when he was head of Multinational Forces Iraq and later head of CENTCOM. And that is clear, hold, and build. Now, what's interesting is that Israel got the clear and hold parts right. They now hold about 75% of the Gaza Strip. They just forgot about that build thing, which is a crucial part to fighting any insurgency. And this is where people, especially Israelis, are yelling at their screen going, Ryan Havel Shali, you don't understand. This is not an insurgency where people can be convinced that we're the good guys. And yeah, in a case like that, you need to get to a 4-phased approach, which I kind of made up an acronym for. I call it I escape. Because eventually the idea is to leave, and I escape stands for isolate, evacuate, strike, control. I escape, right? But the second part, this evacuate thing, that's going to be ugly and slow. Even when the IDF floods phones with warnings and opens routes south from Gaza City, which is essentially the last stronghold, Hamas's tactic will be to sabotage corridors, maximize civilian pain for public relations, because they are extremists who don't give a crap about their civilian population. This is not a secret. This is not new. Hamas will disrupt Phase 2, and Phase 2 is going to be the most important phase because it sets up the other 2 phases. To control all of Gaza, Israel needs mass. It's going to have to call up reservists. It's going to have to rotate infantry to hold, MPs to police, engineers to breach, and discover tunnels, route power, water, and armor for quick reaction forces. They also are going to need persistent ISR, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. We're talking drones, balloons, ground sensors, essentially watching every alley during this last push. You're probably going to see a heck of a lot more reservists called up who really don't want to be there. This means outposts, T-walls, a lot of very boring Overwatch that saves lives precisely because it is boring. The enemy counters with the classic insurgent play. Improvised explosive devices, snipers, mortars, blending in among civilians. Eventually, Israel will outlast Hamas. Hamas's days are numbered. If they can get this to work. And I say that because that Hamas's days are numbered because Hamas is kind of fresh out of friends. I mean, when you have the Arab League telling Hamas to lay down their weapons, not a lot you can do with that for support, right? Especially when Iran is too busy trying to put their country's surface-to-air missile network back in order, and a lot of Iran's proxies are on the ropes, like Hezbollah and even the Houthis. Eventually, they will run out of missiles. Now, I want to talk about humanitarian aid for a moment. Two things can be true at the same time. A state has a right to prevent future massacres and rescue hostages, and clearing dense cities full of displaced civilians is a humanitarian nightmare, even when you follow the book to the letter. Israel has repeatedly pushed civilian evacuation notifications, designated routes in prior operations that reduces risk but doesn't erase it. I can't even get my 86-year-old father to get off the couch and go to Ponzio's. And, there's a heck of a lot of elderly and families with young children who don't want to leave or can't leave even if you tell them to leave. That being said, aid must keep flowing. Power, water, medical, food. After that, housing and schools and an economy that doesn't depend on smuggling tunnels can kind of bloom. You can't shoot a functioning municipality into existence. You have to build it, you have to guard it, you have to pay for it. Expect fights over who controls aid distribution. Cutting Hamas out of that loop is the entire point, but choke the pipeline too hard and you starve the wrong people. That's where the UN, the World Food Program, will clash with newer NGOs like Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Look, there are a lot of butthurt people at the UN right now who built their careers on working directly with Hamas because, for all intents and purposes, they were the dominant government faction in Gaza. Expect the UN to sabotage this process of humanitarian aid at every step of the way. Not necessarily because some of these bureaucrats support Hamas, but because nothing is more frustrating than irrelevance. So what does victory look like? Well, I can tell you what it doesn't look like. It doesn't look like the Palestinian Authority from the West Bank, also known as Fatah, is inserted as the governing body in Gaza. That's already been made clear that the Palestinian Authority will have nothing to do with any sort of new government. So there's really only two options. The first is an Israeli occupation that is permanent in everything but name. The second is some sort of international peacekeeping force like the one on the border between Egypt and Israel, also known as the MFO, the Multinational Force of Observers. Now, the MFO is not a United Nations organization, and honestly, that's probably why it works so well. You have countries like Albania and New Zealand in the MFO. These are countries with no real political agenda regarding the Middle East. So if we can find non-aligned countries, this might be a good strategy for some sort of multinational security coalition. This is why American policy matters. Retreating into isolationism doesn't create peace. It creates a vacuum for countries like Iran and China to fill. Now, this only works if we show up, or else ammunition is just going to start crossing borders in the dark again. I said before, I see Palestinians as a people first. I've worked in the region. I've learned Arabic poorly. Look, the Gazans have lived under Hamas's iron grip since 2007, and some Palestinians see that rule as illegitimate. Some of these dudes want to lead normal lives, schools that open, water that runs, a government that doesn't stash rockets next to the generator. And that's why any kind of endgame requires Hamas to step aside or be pushed aside so a provisional authority, a viceroy, or a multinational force can function within a framework that accepts Israel's existence and audits the aid. One more thing. There's still 20 or so living hostages in Gaza. Yes, I've called them prisoners before, but I've said that because if you can't freely leave someplace, you're a prisoner, right? But yeah, they are hostages. And they matter in every single tactical and political decision here. I don't have an answer for the hostages. Not from a realistic standpoint. Most of them are not likely to survive this final push into Gaza City. My biggest fear is that as the noose tightens around Hamas's neck, criminal gangs or other terrorist organizations like Islamic Jihad will start a war for the few prisoners who remain. It's because every hostage is a golden ticket. It's a get out of jail free card, or at least get less jail card. I could see various gangs fighting each other over these final hostages who remain and the people who are going to suffer are the hostages. But to end this on a positive note, the good news is that whenever you move a hostage, that requires coordination, and any kind of coordination will run the risk of being intercepted by IDF intelligence. And that means the IDF may be able to launch rescue operations for some hostages, at least within a very tight window. And that's good news. I guess the next time you'll see me, I'll probably be on the ground in Israel. One quick note for my Israeli fans. I appreciate all of you reaching out and asking me to meet up. The fact is that this is a work trip, and I have to do whatever my producers tell me to do. It looks like I'll be working until 10 p.m. almost every single day I'm there, except for Thursday when we're at a military base. I think we leave at 4, and we got to do a van ride back. So I don't think I'm going to have a lot of real time, but I really appreciate how warm everybody has been. I wish I could meet all of you. I wish I could do a meetup, but the fact is that this is a work trip first that I'm being paid to go on. Hey, if you want to support the channel, grab my Intel Life t-shirt at Bunker Branding. Thank you guys so much for watching.
In a world where fashion meets firepower, where style becomes strategy, it's time to gear up for the ultimate mission with Bunker Branding. Introducing the Rock Out With Your Chalk Out t-shirt, a tribute to the fearless air cavalry. Feel the adrenaline rush as you don the pride of the skies. For those of you who dare from the air, precision and power unite when you think outside the bomb. And don't miss our Live, Laugh, Launch t-shirts for Patriot and HIMARS, because sometimes defending freedom means bringing the thunder. Finally, for the true defender of the seas, we present Department of the Boat People. Sail with honor and show your allegiance to the world's mightiest maritime force. With these shirts, hoodies, and stickers, along with the tow missile, landmines, and drone warfare. These aren't just shirts, they're statements. They're your way of saying I stand for strength, unity, and style. Get yours at Bunker Branding today.